In this video, we will be covering the 10 most hyped and interesting crypto art marketplaces, which ones are the most promising and the fastest growing, which ones have the most expensive artworks and wealthiest collectors, and which ones are doing the most hip and trendy art projects. And I will also be showing you how I do my crypto art research and which websites I use for that personally. Let's start off with the smaller marketplaces, the ones that did not make the cut of top performing marketplaces that we will cover later in this video. Generally speaking, these marketplaces are younger and they don't have the most wealthy collectors, the most volume in sales or anything like that, but they do have something that these bigger platforms don't have. They have some avant-garde feel, something new, something risky, which makes them a potential candidate to becoming the next big crypto art marketplace. First, we have Mintable.app. They are selling art and collectibles, and interestingly are following the eBay business model where people can leave reviews and things like that, which seems a little bit strange because we are talking about something digital. Everything that is there to review is already viewable for free online. I mean, what are you going to review? The shipping speed or something like that? It feels strange. Dear Marketplace, I have ordered NFTs, but they came a fraction of a second later than usual. Because of this, I can only give you 4 stars. Sincerely yours, Karen. And so as a result, it's very unclear to know in advance how these buyers will use these reviews and these mechanisms, but it is very interesting to see how young marketplaces are trying things out, because the only way that you can replace one of the big marketplaces is by differentiating yourself. And ironically, most smaller marketplaces don't even try to do that. And so it's very interesting to see that Mintable is at least trying to innovate. Next up, we have cryptoart.io. Cool site, kind of new, cool stuff going on, and it feels very promising because I see a lot of people talking about this on the forums and things like that, and that's always a good sign. And so this one is definitely one that you want to check out. The third marketplace that we are going to cover is famous for only featuring art that uses my personal favorite color, namely like button blue, which is something that you could get for free by pressing the like button on this video, and it also helps out a lot with the algorithm, so thank you very much. Cargo.build is another one of those marketplaces. They are doing some interesting new stuff that you simply don't see on big platforms. Cargo does things with stacking gems behind NFTs on their platform and technical stuff that is very promising. I don't understand the technical stuff yet completely, but it definitely caught my eye during my research. I could have done more research to actually know the technical stuff, but who cares, Karen? What the Karen, do your own research, okay? Another one is Blockchain Art Exchange. The website is mybae.io. It's a cool one, it looks very aesthetical, and it has some kind of underground vibe going on. I mean, I have nothing bad to say about this website, and also nothing extremely positive about it either. The reason I wanted to cover it is because, again, I see a lot of people talking about this one on the forums, and so there's definitely something going on here for sure. Now we come to the second part of this video, the part where we will cover the most hyped up marketplaces, the ones where all the wealthy collectors are, the ones that are doing large sales volumes. And the first one that we will cover is Nifty Gateway. It's a more new marketplace that is gaining a lot of hype and a lot of momentum in the last couple of months. You have to apply in order to sell your art on their marketplace, and they are very selective about that. And in doing so, they create an atmosphere of exclusivity that obviously has a positive impact on sales. They sell art through drops, and they do an amazing job of controlling the supply, meaning that they sell way less artworks than the demand they have on their site. This results in each NFT selling out in a matter of minutes, sometimes even seconds. And so by doing that, they are obviously creating the illusion of a massive demand, which then also results in more sales. And so obviously as an artist, you want to collaborate with this platform. And as a collector, it's also interesting because they are doing a lot of the research prior to accepting artists. And so then you don't have to do that research yourself, and you're decreasing the risk on your investment. Next up, we have Known Origin, which is a pretty cool name, perhaps even my favorite name amongst all the crypto art marketplaces. And the cool thing about their name is that In the traditional art world, one of the most difficult things to do is actually authenticating an artwork, going back to the origin of that artwork and seeing who sold it first, track record, sales track record, stuff like that. And it's exactly that problem that crypto art promises to solve. And so Known Origin is a pretty cool name. Anyway, in order to sell your art on their platform, you also need to apply, and they have a different vibe going on than the other marketplaces, obviously. And so just like in the traditional art world, each of these marketplaces is in line with a particular set of aesthetics. They all feature a different taste of artworks. And so as an artist, it's important to understand that you have to find a marketplace in line with your style. If you don't get accepted in one of them, just apply to another one and you might get accepted there because your art might fit their taste more. Next up, we have Rarible.com, which is a very interesting one for artists who are just starting out because you don't have to apply in order to enter this marketplace. And so you don't need big audiences or big awards or big exhibitions that you've already had in order to access this marketplace. And on top of that, you can also very easily install some kind of royalty fees on future sales of your artworks, meaning that every time your artwork is sold in the future on that marketplace, you will get a percentage, let's say 10% of the sales price there. And so this is really interesting and one of the benefits that NFTs offer. And so it's very strange to see that a lot of marketplaces actually don't use this feature, don't offer this feature, but Rarible does. But there's also a downside to allowing everyone to sell on your marketplace, namely that the quality of the artworks will be much lower. And so for collectors, I would personally be very careful with these platforms because you will find a lot of things on here. Things that are simply not worth it. I mean, everyone can sell NFTs on these platforms, meaning everyone also does. And so you will find NFTs from famous people like Mark Cuban and Logan Paul, but also from non-famous crappy Karens that don't know how to make art or brand themselves. But here's the thing. The truth is that most of these NFT artworks, these crypto artworks that are being sold for thousands of dollars at this moment will be worthless a couple of years from now. This is just how it goes. This is how it went in all centuries before us with all artworks, with all art movements. And history, of course, will repeat itself. And so the message here is clear. Do your research and potentially choose marketplaces who are more selective, who are doing their own research, so you get double research, which is better than single research. Makersplace.com is another marketplace where you have to apply to enter. They have a decent amount of sales going on, and so they are definitely worth mentioning, but at this moment, they haven't really been able to distinguish themselves from other marketplaces who are more famous, like OpenSea, SuperRare, or Rarible. The last couple of marketplaces that we will cover are probably the most interesting ones. The first one of them is superrare.co. That's also kind of an interesting name because they are one of the only ones who are only selling original art and not the open edition stuff. And so considering that they are one of the only ones, makes them somewhat rare, perhaps even super rare. Which makes them perhaps super rare. That's very lame. Whatever. SuperRare is also one of the more high-end marketplaces, if not the most high-end marketplace at this moment. Some $1 million sales have been made on this marketplace, and generally speaking, they have more established value because they sold those high-ticket items. And $1 million items also attract more high-end collectors who can afford a little more. And because of that, you could say that this is kind of like the Christie's or Sotheby's of the crypto art world. And that is also how SuperRare describes themselves, as a combination of Instagram and Christie's. Now, comparing themselves to Christie's is obviously kind of a stretch. It will probably take them another decade or 2 decades at the very minimum to even be remotely close to Christie's. But it's kind of true to some extent, and so that's interesting. Next up, we have OpenSea.io. Currently on the homepage, OpenSea calls themselves the largest NFT marketplace out there. And obviously you have to take these claims with a grain of salt. Every marketplace calls themselves something. The biggest, the latest, the oldest, the newest, the fastest growing, etc, etc, etc. But this one is definitely interesting because it's one of the first, if not the first NFT marketplaces. And so this one has some kind of OG vibe going on, which is always something extra. Look at Bitcoin, for example. That coin is still going strong, even though it's probably the most useless coin out there. And And that is because of that OG thing that Bitcoin has going on. And a quick little side note here, on OpenSea you can only buy and sell NFTs. You cannot mint your own NFTs and then start selling them. And so for artists who are searching a place to mint and sell, OpenSea is probably not for you. And the way I personally use this website is to do research. If you go, for example, to rankings, you see the volume of transactions of particular NFTs, from art all the way to sport and trading cards. And so it's clear that you can start doing a lot of research with OpenSea. And because of this site is definitely a go-to site for buying, selling, and crypto research. That said, let me give you one more site that I use for research myself, because research is probably the most important part of it all. Knowing which marketplaces are the best marketplaces is peanuts compared to knowing how to do your research before you buy. Next, we have non-fungible.com. If you go to the market history tab, you can see the volume that each marketplace is doing, and these are colossal numbers, as you can see. I mean, if you compare this to some of the major auction houses, you would be surprised of how big these NFT marketplaces already are. Let's take Philips, for example. They are the third most famous auction house for contemporary art, right under Christie's and Sotheby's. And they have about 11.9% of that market. In total, they are doing $584 million in sales each year. Now, you have to take into account that $584 million is for everything, not just contemporary art, but also jewelry and other assets. And so if you take that number and compare it with some of these NFT marketplaces who have done tens of millions of dollars for art, of which the majority happened in just the last couple of months during the hype, then you start to understand how mind-blowing this NFT market space really is. And so looking at these numbers, it becomes clear that the career jump that you will be able to make through crypto art in the next year would probably in the traditional art market take you a decade or two. And so this shows how full of potential the NFT market, the internet as a whole, is at this moment. Now, in order to make this video complete, we should be talking about investing your time and money in these marketplaces. Meaning that we should know whether or not NFTs and crypto art are worth your time, because the worst thing that can happen is that you invest, or rather waste your time on these marketplaces. And in order to do that, we have to look at the benefits and the downsides of crypto art and compare that to the traditional art markets. And so we should be doing that. We should be listing all the benefits and all the downsides of crypto art and then compare that to the traditional art market. But that would be another 15 minutes and frankly, a completely different video. And so I'm very sorry, but we are not going to do that. Predominantly, because I already did. It's called You Should Know This Before Starting with Crypto Art, NFT Pros and Cons. In other words, you could be watching that video right now. Hope to see you there. Ciao, ciao.